Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Chapter 30. On parole. I was wakened, indeed, we were all awakened, for I could see even the sentinel shake himself together where he had fallen against the doorpost, by a clear hearty voice hailing from us, margin of the wood. "Blockhouse, ahoy!" it cried. "Here's the doctor." And the doctor it was. Although I was glad to hear the sound, yet my gladness was not without a mixture. I remembered my confusion with my insubordinate in my stealthy conduct, and when I saw where it had brought me, I felt ashamed among what the companions had surrounded by what dangers. I felt ashamed to look at him in the face. He must have risen in the dark, for the day had hardly come, and when I ran to a loophole and looked out, I saw him standing like Silver once before, up to a middle like creeping vapor. "You, doctor, top of the morning to you, sir," cried Silver, broad awake and beaming with good nature in a moment. "Bright and early, to be sure. It's the early bird, as the saying goes. And get the rations. George, shake up your timbers, son, and help Dr. Livesey on the ship's side. All doing well, your patience was. All in all well and merry." So he pattered on, standing on the hilltop with his crutch under his elbow, and one hand on the side of the log house, quite while old John in the voice and manner and the expression. "We've had quite a surprise for you, sir," he continued. "We've had a little stranger here. He, a new boarder and a lodger, sir, looking fit and taut as a fiddler, like a supercargo he did, right alongside of John, to stem and stem we was all night. By the time Dr. Livesey had crossed the stockade and pretty near the cook, I could hear the alteration in his voice as he said, 'Not Jim?' The very same Jim as ever." The doctor stopped outright. Although he did not speak, it was some second that he'd be able to move on. "Well, well," said he, "duty first and pleasure afterwards, as you might have said yourself, for let us overhaul these patients of yours." And at the moment afterwards he had entered the blockhouse, with one grim nod to me, proceeding with his work among the sick. He seemed under no apprehension, though he must have known that his life among these treacherous demons depended on a hair, and he rattled on to his patients as if he were paying an ordinary professional visit in quiet English family. In his manner, I suppose, he reacted on the men, for behaved him to nothing as had occurred, and he was still the ship's doctor, as they had faithful hands before the mast. "You're doing well, my friend," he said to the fellow bandage head. "If any person had a close shave, it was you. Your head must have been hard as iron. Well, George, how goes it? Your pale colours, certainly. Why, your liver, man, is upside down. Did you take that medicine? Did he take the medicine, men?" "Aye, aye, sir, he took it, sure enough. Because, you see," said, "I am mutineer's doctor, or prison doctor, as I prefer to call it," says Dr. Livesey, in his pleasantest way. "I make a point in honour not to lose a man for King George, God bless him, and the gallows." The rogues looked at each other, but swallowed thrusts in silence. "Dick don't feel well, sir," says one. "Don't he?" cried the doctor. "Well, step up here, Dick. Let me see your tongue." "No, I should be surprised if he did. The man's tongue is to fit to frighten the French. Another fever." "Ah, there," said Morgan. "That combed and spilled in Bibles." "That combed, as you call it, being an arrant ass," retorted the doctor, "and not having sense enough to know the honest from poison, in the dry land of Vile, the Precerous law. It must have been most probable, though, of course, if it only an opinion, that you have all the dues to pay before you get the malaria out of your systems. Camp up in a bog, would you? Silver, I'm surprised that you're less than a fool than many take you all around, but you don't appear to me have any rudiments of notion of the rules of health. Well," he added, after he dosed them round and likely taken his prescriptions, really laughable humility, and more like a charity school children than blood-guilty mutineers and pirates. "Well, that's done for today, and I should now have wished to talk with that boy, please," and he nodded his head in my direction carelessly. George Murray was at the door, spitting and spluttering over some bad-tasting medicine, but at the first word the doctor proposed when he sprang round with a deep flush, and cried, "No!" and swore. Silver struck the barrel with his open sign. "Silence!" he roared, and looked at him positive, like a lion. Doctor, he went on, I was a thinking, and you know how you fancy for the boy. We all humbly grateful for your kindness. But as you see, we are puts in faith in you, and that takes drugs down much like that grog, and I take it. I've found a way I'll suit you all. Hawkins, if you'll give me a word of honor as a young gentleman, for a young gentleman you are, although born poor born, your word of honor is not ready to slip from your cable. I readily gave the pledge I required. Then, doctor, said Silver, you must step outside our stockade, and once you're there, I'll bring the boy down inside, and I reckon you can yarn through the spars. Good day to you, sir, and all duties to the squire and Captain Smollett. The explosion of disapproval, which nothing but Silver's black had looked restrained, broke out immediately the doctor had left the house. Silver was round accused of playing double, or trying to make a separate peace for himself, or of sacrificing the interests of his accomplices and victims. And, in one word, the identical exact thing that he was doing. It seemed to me so obvious that in this case I could not imagine how he was going to turn their anger. But he was twice the man the rest they were, and his last night's victory gave him a huge preponderance on their minds. He called them all fools and dolts, so you can imagine. And it's necessary that I could talk to the doctor, fluttered with the charts in their faces, asked them if they could afford to break the treaty the very day that they were bound a treasure hunting. No, by thunder, he cried, it must us break the treaty when the time comes, and tail the gammon at the doctor if I'll oil his boots with brandy. And then he bade them and get the fire lit, and, and stalk upon his crutch, and with his hands on my shoulder, leaving him in a disarray and silenced with his volubility, rather convinced. Slow, lad, slow, he said. This might round upon in a twinkle of an eye, if we were seen in a hurry. Very deliberately, then, did we advance across the sand where the doctor awaited us on the other side of the stockade, and as soon as we were within easy speaking distance, Silver stopped. You'll make a note of this here also, doctor, he said. The boy'll tell me how I saved his life, and we were deposed of it too. You may lay to that, doctor. When a man's steering as near as wind to me, playing chuck farthing with the last breath of his body, and you wouldn't think of it too much, mayhaps, to give him one good word. You'll please to bear in mind that if it's not laced only now, that it's the boy into the bargain. And you'll speak me fair, doctor, and give me a bit of hope to go on, for the sake of mercy. Silver was a changed man, and once he was out there and had his back of his friend in the blockhouse, his cheeks have to seem fallen in. His voice trembled, and was more of a soul dead in the earnest. Why, Dr. John, you're not afraid? Asked Dr. Livesey. Doctor, I'm no coward. No, not so much. And when he snapped his fingers, if I was I wouldn't say it, but I will own up fairly. I've taken the shakes upon me for the gallows. You're a good man and true. I've never seen a better man, and you not forget what I've done good. Not any more will you forget the bad. I'll step aside and see here and leave you and Jim alone. And you put that down for me, too. It's a long stretch, is that? So staying, he stepped back in a little way, until he was out of the earshot, and then sat down on a tree stump and began to whistle, and spinning round again upon his seat, so that the command a sight, sometimes of me and the doctor, and sometimes of the unruly ruffians as they went to and fro of the sand, between the fire, and they were busily rekindling their house, and they brought forth pork and bread to make a breakfast. So, Jim, said Doctor sadly, here you are. As you have not bruised, you shall drink, my boy. Heaven knows, I cannot find it in my heart to blame you, but I will say as much as this. When Captain Smollett was well, you dared me not have gone far off. But when he was ill, I couldn't help it, by George. It was downright cowardly. I will own that I began to weep, doctor. I said, you might spare me. I blame myself enough. My life's forfeit anyway. I should have been dead by now if Silver hadn't stood for me. And doctor, believe this, I can die, and I dare say I deserve it. But what I fear is torture. If they come and torture me, Jim, said the doctor, his voice quite changed. Jim, I can't have this. Whip over and we'll run for it. Doctor, I know. I passed my word. I know, he cried. We can't help that, Jim. But now I'll take it on my shoulders. Holus bolus, blame, shame, my boy, but stay here. I cannot let you. Jump, one jump, and you're out, and we'll run for it like antelopes. No, he replied. You know right well you won't do that thing yourself. Neither you nor Squire nor Captain, and no more will I. Silver trusted me, and I'll pass my word and back. If they come to torture me, I'll let slip a word of where the ship is. And for they got the ship, part by luck and part by risking. And she lies in the north inlet, on the southern beach, just below high water. And at half time she must be high and dry. The ship! Exclaimed the doctor. Rapidly, I described to him my adventures, and he heard me out in silence. There is a kind of faith in this, he observed, in what I had done. Every step. It's you that saved our lives. And do you suppose that by any chance we are going to let you lose yours? That'd be a poor return, my boy. You found out the plot. You found Ben Gunn, the best deed that you ever did, or will do. You live to 90? Oh, but Juther, in talking of Ben Gunn, why this mischief in person, Silver, he cried. Silver, I'll give you a piece of advice, he continued, as the cook drew near again. Don't ye be in any great hurry that treasure. Why, sir, I'll do my possible. In which that ain't, said Silver. I can only ask your pardon and save my life, and the boy's by seeking the treasure that you may lay to that. Well, Silver, cried the doctor, if it's that so, I'll go one step further and look out for the squalls, and when you find it. Sir, said Silver, as between man and man, that is too much and too little. As between man and man, that but when we're after, between the blockhouse, you give me there a chart, and I don't know, do I, and yet, I'll done your bidding with my eyes shut, and never a word of hope. But no, that there's not too much. If you won't tell me then what you mean plain out, I'll just say so, and I'll leave my helm. No, said the doctor, musingly, I've no right to say no more. It's not my secret, you see, Silver, or I give you my dare worst. I'll tell it to you, but I'll go far with you, as I dare go. And a step beyond, I'll have my wig sorted by captain, or I'm mistaken. And for the first, I give you a bit of a hope. And, Silver, if we both get out alive of this wolf trap, I'll do my best to save you, a perjury. Silver's face was radiant. You couldn't say no more, I'm sir, if you were not was my mother, he cried. Well, that's my first concession, added the doctor. My second is the piece of advice. Keep the boy close behind you, and when you need help, hello. I am off to seek for you, and that as well itself wouldn't show you if I speak at random. Goodbye, Jim. And Dr. Lives shook hand with me and through the stockade, nodded to Silver, and set off at a brisk pace into the woods.